What's up, coaches, players, and even some parents? I want to welcome you to the first episode of Coach Hayes Football. I am Coach Hayes, and I just like to say this channel has been dedicated for those who want to learn more about football. Anything under the sun about football, we're definitely going to talk about. For example, philosophy, schemes, player personnel, recruiting, off-season workouts, you name it, we're going to talk about it. So I just want you to grab your pen, grab your notebook, make sure you take notes, sit back, relax, and we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the first episode of Coach Hayes Football. Again, I am Coach Hayes, and I just want to start our first segment off of this episode, which I'll probably do in every episode. It's just what I call food for thought, or maybe it's just something you haven't thought about. It's going to talk about things kind of outside of the X's and O's, so far as maybe from a philosophical standpoint, maybe something from a team building standpoint, a program building standpoint, an off season, but it has really nothing to do with X's and O's more than it has to do with those things in particular. So the first one I would like to talk about is something that I ran across I thought was very interesting from Bear Bryant, of course, you know, the coach from Alabama, and it's called his 3 rules of coaching. In his 3 rules of coaching, he talks about one is surround yourself with people who cannot live without football. I think that's very important because football is so demanding. It takes so much sacrifice, again, from your friends, your family, even sometimes your personal life. But you got to find people in order to be successful in certain programs, and especially if you're just starting a program and it's not established, you need to make sure that you surround yourself from coaches, your booster club, your administration, people that can't stand to live without the game of football. It's kind of just their, not even a hobby, that's just their way of life. So that's number one. That's his first rule. His second rule is recognize winners. They come in all forms, all right? And that's very important. Sometimes we get caught up looking for winners because they're a certain size or they're a certain height or they got a certain physical capability. And again, that's not always the case. You got to find everybody has a certain attribute that they can contribute to your program, and you need to make sure that you explore that, and you need to make sure that you can get the most out of that, or whatever that may be. You may have some coaches on your staff that may not be great in X's and O's, but they're excellent when it comes down to the tech, especially with the way football is today. Everything is tech-based. There's the huddle, there's the video guy, there's playbooks that are now automated, all kind of stuff. So that may be his strong point. You want to make sure that you can use that, and you can make sure that he or she, whether it be somebody maybe in boosters that's good in fundraising or marketing, you want to make sure that you can capitalize on what the strength of those people. So they're winners in everybody. Everybody, just because they're in football doesn't mean they have to be an X and O guru, but they can also bring a lot to your program. And third is have a plan for everything. Now, this is probably the most difficult because it is very difficult to plan for everything. But if you write things down, map things out, you probably can come up with, I would say, about 90% of the stuff, and the other 10% of what else. So what if this happens? You need to have a contingency plan for that. So make sure you do have a plan for everything from equipment to passing out jerseys to food preparation. All of that goes into football, not just X's and O's and having practice if you want to have a successful program. Now, if you just want to go out there and run a couple of plays and go out on Fridays, Saturdays and perform, and then that's what you'll get out. So again, you get out what you put in. So have a plan for everything. Try and write things out. If something doesn't go right, make sure you write that down so therefore you can execute that problem a little bit better. That's my food for thought for the day. That's just something I hope that you can take with you, a little nugget that you can use somewhere down the line when you're either building your program or you can implement into your program that you already have going. Now we're going to jump straight on into the topic of the day. Okay, so the topic of the day is what we want to do is talk about how we implement kind of our philosophy on plays and what we want, the steps we want our players to take every time they come out the huddle, what should happen when they come out the huddle, what they're doing, what goes on, and what's going to help make them successful. We use a very simple acronym called C.A.S.K.E.T, all right? And in that, we always say when we break the huddle, put them in the casket. And when we say put them in the casket, again, here's my disclaimer. We're not talking about actually trying to kill anyone, because I know for today's times are very sensitive. That's not what it's all about. Again, it's just an acronym, and it's used to help our kids remember the steps they need to take in order to be successful for every play. Now, with that being said, when we talk about putting them in the casket, the first thing we talk about is the C. And C stands for communication. All right? In communication, this is very big. This is getting the play call from the coach, whether it be the signal, whether it be the actual call itself, if they're using wristbands, get the communication to the players. Players communicate it in the huddle, and then within the huddle, they come out. Also in that communication is identifying your opponent. If you're on offense, identifying who that blitz may be. Who is the Mike? Is there a tilt? Is a guy showing a blitz? Is there a one high? Is it too high? Is he pressed? Whatever that may be. On defense, it's very simple. Identifying the formation. Do I have 2 receivers to one side? Do I have 3 receivers to one side? Is there a sniffer in the background? Whatever that may be, in order to help the kids identify what's going on, all of that part is communication. That is very important, because if we're all on the same page, guess what? We can help finish this play off, and we can make sure that we stop this play. And if we're on offense, we can make sure we can maximize our opportunities. All right. Next is alignment and assignment. This is very important. Know how to line up correctly. Lining up correctly really is the very beginning of a play success. To know if you're going to line up right, that way you get a chance to make sure you have the proper spacing if you're on offense. If you're on defense, line up properly. Make sure you know that you have the right leverage if you're a DB. Linebackers, you have the perfect depth. Are you splitting the difference or using the apex between the slot receiver and the offensive tackle? However that goes, but aligning up correctly, knowing what's going on. Next is assignment. Assignment is tied very closely to the communication part, and what I was talking about was knowing what you are supposed to do. If you know what you are supposed to do and all 11 guys are on the same page doing the same thing, 95% of the chance that play will be successful. Okay, so that's very important. Alignment, know where you're supposed to be before the snap. Assignment, know what you're supposed to do at the snap. Next is S. That is for our stance and our starts. Be in the proper stance. Everybody coaches it, being in the proper stance, whether you're a DB, quarterbacks, offensive linemen, linebacker, all positions. Any position that you have to start off correctly. You have to have your stance correctly. That way you can start correctly. So if you're in the proper stance, that way you create the proper leverage, the proper explosion. All of that is key to having a successful play. Next is the start, your get off. Are you supposed to come off explosive? Are you supposed to come off with power? Is it a kickback step if you're an offensive lineman? Linebackers, are you taking read steps? All of those are your start. Okay, so remember, your stance gets you ready to start. So your stance is getting ready to explode, or whatever the case may be, whatever your coach is teaching you, that's what is important. Stance is again how you start off. Start is how you take off the ball, how you do the proper things you're supposed to do. Next is keys. Okay, keys are very important. Keys are things that you look at the snap of the ball. So, for example, old school, if I'm a defensive lineman, I'm looking at the knuckles of the offensive tackle, right? If he's light on his hands, guess what? He's in a pass set. If he's heavy on his hands and I see his knuckles, you got the real tight knuckles, he's coming off the ball. Those are all keys. If you're a linebacker, you're looking at the running back. Is he in a position where he can actually get the handoff? Or is he spread out a little wider so he can help block and pass protection? All right. For DBs, is it the alignment of the wide receiver? Is he 2 yards from the sideline? If he's 2 yards from the sideline, very rarely do I think he's going to run an out route. Okay. So from the offensive side of the ball, keys are quarterbacks. I'm looking at the safety. Is it 2 high safeties? Is it a 1 high safety? All right. Do I have press coverage outside on the number 1? Running backs. Your key is looking at the hole. Where's the bubble located? Where can I find my escape route, my cutback, if my initial route of my initial path is cut off? Okay. Those are all keys. All that happens prior to the play and as the play is going on. Next one, effort. The oldest thing in football is this is something that cannot be coached, and this is something that people, believe this or not, get highly recruited for by just giving effort. You cannot coach effort. And let me say that, let me take that back. You can coach effort. You have to implement that in your practices. You have to make sure you emphasize that in your practices as a coach. But as a player, guess what? That's all want to. It's all about what you want to do. It's all about giving your all on every single play, going 110%. All right, effort. And not only effort, if all 11 guys are giving effort, it's very rare. Even if a play breaks, you'll probably stop that play because all 11 guys are getting to the ball. How many times have we simply seen the backside corner, because the play goes away on a sweep or whatever, backside corner, he's trotting to the ball. Then all of a sudden that ball breaks, and now that kid doesn't have a chance, right? And one thing I say, especially from a defensive side, if all 11 guys get to the football, it's very hard for a running back or wide receiver to be successful, because when he's getting hit by 8, 9 guys a play, that takes a lot on the body. So if you really think about this, first play of the game, he gets hit by 9 people. The second play, he gets hit by another 9. That kid has now been hit 18 times in the second play of the game. So that's something I really want to emphasize, especially to coaches, and especially if you're coaching defensive football. Get to the football. Make sure your guys understand that they need to be on the play. I can't emphasize that enough. Get to the football. Get to the football. Get to the football. All right. And we'll talk about drills on how you do that and everything else in some other episodes. But again, these are just some of our 5 elements we want to talk about. And the last is trust. All right. You got to implement trust into your defense. You know, I get it, back in the day, we used to tell our players, do what I say because I said do it. Well, guess what? That does work in some instances, but reality is not human nature. Humans would like to trust what's going on, right? If I trust what's going on, I would definitely give you all of the other things before, because I believe in what you're telling me. I believe in everything that's going on. And then once I believe what's going on, the play becomes successful regardless. Like on offense, trust me that if I'm telling you to run this slant, no, the linebacker's not going to hit you, because you're going to run it at the proper depth. You're going to make sure you run it correctly, and therefore you're going to be protected. I'm not going to do anything to put you in a bad situation. You know, your coaches are not going to do anything to put you in harm's way. So that's trust. Next, especially for defense, is turnovers. All right, and I like to use the word takeaway, because turnover for me defensively means that either they fumbled the ball on the handoff, and again, we'll take it, don't get me wrong, but takeaways are way more important. You get in there and strip the ball out. That's way more disheartening to an offense than it is just fumbling the ball. Now, you've seen kids drop their head because they fumbled the exchange, but when you go in there and rip their ball out, it just does something to the psyche, to that kid, and it puts him in a bad place. And again, that's just a positive for the defense. Offensively, all right, we want to make sure that if we do get a turnover, we got to get back to our effort and get to the football, stop that, give our defense a chance to stop it to get us the ball back. All right. So again, guys, these are just our 6 elements, that we put into our every play. Every play, we got to hear communication. We got to hear alignment assignment. We got to see alignment assignment. We got to see our stance and starts. We got to make sure that our kids are reading their keys. We got to make sure that everybody's giving effort. And we got to make sure we emphasize turnovers. And as coaches, we have to make sure that our players trust us, so therefore they'll trust the plays. All right. So, guys, again, I don't want these episodes to be too long. I just like to simply talk about a couple of things. And I hope this is just, like, again, a couple of nuggets that'll help you with your program. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Also, make sure that you subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell, because we're going to try and drop some of these episodes every week at least, especially during the off season. We'll definitely drop an episode once a week and try and get you prepared for the season that's coming up, because I know some coaches or some states rather have spring football and some of them don't. So this will be a great time for you to implement some of these things. If not, when you come to spring ball, you can put in a section of them, a piece of them, and that way you can get to go from there. All right. Thank you again for our first episode of Coach Hayes Football. I want to thank you, man. I appreciate it. We want to make this channel good. I want to make sure I get everything out to you guys. There's no secrets here. This is just my way of kind of giving back to what has given me so much. All right. Have a great day. See you guys at the 50-yard line.